We have explored using a single bumper switch, distance sensor, and optical sensor in our programming. At the end of the last video, I posed a question. Could you write a program to use your color sensor to make a series of turns depending on what color it sees? Let's try to program this and add a second sensor into the mix. Remember that the optical sensor can sense color, so we will use that sensor for most of the program. But we can use the distance sensor to cause the program to end when the robot gets close to an object. This program is the last one we will show you and quite complex compared to the others. It will use not only a forever loop like the last program, but also a series of if statements to have the robot react to color in different ways. I make sure I have added both the optical sensor and distance sensor to the devices menu in the VEX Code software. The first thing I want to do is set the optical sensor to color mode. So I drag the Set Optical block over. When trying to do measurement, the slower a robot is moving, the more precise it can be. To aid in this, I drag over both a Set Drive Velocity and Set Turn Velocity block over, and set both to 25%. Next, from the control blocks, I drag a forever loop over. Remember, everything inside this loop repeats until the stop button is pressed or the robot stops by another means. Now, we want one of four things to happen. If the optical sensor sees no color, we want the robot to drive forward. If the optical sensor sees blue, we want the robot to turn left. If the optical sensor sees green, we want the robot to turn right. If the robot is going to run into an object, we want it to stop before it hits. So within the forever block, I first will drag an if then else block. In this block, I make the condition be if distance in millimeters is less than 50. If this condition is true, if the distance is less than 50 millimeters, we want the robot to stop driving. So I drag over a stop driving block. If the distance is more than 50 millimeters, we want the robot to keep moving. So under the else, I drag a drive forward block. So far, the only thing this program will do is have the robot continue to drive forward and stop if it gets within 50 millimeters of an object. Now let's work on color. I add in an if statement below the if then else. For the criteria, I put in optical detects and then set green. What we want to happen is to have the robot turn right, so I add in a turn right for 90 degrees. Adding one more if statement, again, I'll put an optical detects in and then set blue. What we want to happen is to have the robot turn left, so I add in a turn left for 90 degrees. These blocks should allow for each of the four things to happen. I will run this program on a simulated course with green and blue disks. I download my program to the brain, and then I'll run it to see if it worked. The robot moves forward until it sees green, and then it turns right. Moves forward until it sees blue, and then turns left. It continues turning left and right through the course. When it gets to within 50 millimeters of the red dot, it will stop.